So it's 3 o'clock in Munich. I hope you have got your coffee or anything tea. So welcome to the 40 Colour Management Café after the long summer break. And today's topic is what does it mean that Adobe is ending support for PostScript Type 1 fonts and font house. We have today 3 guest speakers, Dietrich von Seggern, callas, Peter Kleinheider, calibrate, and Dirk Simanek.
Hello.
Greetings. And we also have on board Mario Drexler, high-end media, as guest in Fogra, and my colleagues Andreas Kausha and Donatella Savic. So, and well, before we get to the topic, a few words about the organization. This cafe is a monthly event and always on the first Wednesday every month. And you can follow our website to join the cafes in the future. And during the session, you're welcome to state your questions using the raise hand button on the right-hand side of your panel, or you can state your questions quietly using the chat or question functions, which you can also see on the operating panel. And to the agenda, the intro will be given by Andy, followed by the presentations or speaks and from the other presenters.
Thank you very much, Johan. Welcome after that long break, and we have the first guest here on site. As you know, we started here with an on-site event only, then had a hybrid, then 100% online, and now trying to get some hybrid meeting back in place. And this special event is now in English language. Normally the cafes are in German language, but the topic matter and other reasons we discussed the digital printing working group made it exception 1 or 2 times a year that we have an all English speaking cafe. A very few words from my side, and then we will see here Dietrich, and already speaker of our cafe here about pre-flight and fix-ups 4.0. Dirk was also here in his cafe. I need to convince Peter, but that is subject for the future, but we're working on that to be a star guest here on our show. But he was, of course, sometimes in the back very heavily involved. So I'm very positive to have him in the future. What I like very much, where I must understand that I really not understood, but get a much better insight in the whole topic is reading that book. So it is free of charge online, but of course I have the hard copy here also, and that is a very good introduction in the whole topic of font jargon, an excellent background, anecdotes, and the whole page about font wars. Wars, right? And so this is very interesting. So I highly recommend anyone when you have some time to have access to this. I don't know if this is available in English. I don't know right now. Maybe Dietrich, you know, but
I don't think so. I'm not fully sure, but I'm pretty sure it's not.
Okay, so it's German only. Okay, but 70% of today registered is German speaking, so that might be a good starting point for my friend. And Fogra with fonts, you know, we don't get the flowers, we mostly get the problems, but mostly the kind of font problems are the usual suspects, you know, the Captain Obvious, that the font is not embedded, but otherwise they are just very, very tiny niche problems where something heavily happens, like font width, where it's not clear how to interpret it Is it the render raw or the rib? And if it's ambiguous, there might be different interpretations. So very, very, very specific. So we'll say that Fogra is not so deep inside that topic here. Yeah, the whole topic was initiated, of course, a few years ago. It was kind of planned or signaled in that area, and Dirk wrote here that kind of contribution in German and in English on the Beyond Print board here on the blog, and that was kind of the initiator here to discuss that in digital printing working group. And we found very good experts here to first give us a background of, again, what was the motivation, the problem statement, some insight in the font topic, and then practical turnarounds, workarounds, what are practical solutions, what can be done by experts, what can be done by normal lay people, where do you need brainware, where do you need software, where do you need both, and that is exactly what we would like to discuss, to see here. And again, I highly and heavily encourage you to raise your hand, to discuss, to make that a discussion and not a monologue. So it's up to you to use those experts being present here. And last slide for to me, just one practical question I got in preparation of that event, and that is something I would like to give directly to Dietrich, and not to answer right about, but maybe in light of his talk, to maybe face and touch that topic. With that being said, I am finished, and I would like to give the mic and the screen to Dietrich.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, I show my screen, so you should hopefully see my slide, right? Yeah. I just need to, okay. Fonts, no risk, no fun. You see me, yeah? And as you have already heard twice, so I also want to encourage you to just ask if it's too short, if it's too long, whatever. Let me know. I'm Dietrich von Seggern. I'm CEO here at Colour Software. I'm kind of the predecessor of Olaf Drömer, who was the author of the book that we've just seen, the PostScript and PDF Bible. One of the authors, the other was Thomas Merz. My presentation here should mostly provide background. So it's as Andy said, so we're here because Adobe has announced that they drop Type 1 font support in their authoring application, meaning Creative Suite. So what does that actually mean for us in prepress? And in order to answer that, it's maybe good to just fully understand what text and fonts are. And I'm using some of the slides of previous presentations. So the main title here is Fonts, No Risk, No Fun. One of the reasons is I just like the title, and the other reason is there always is a risk involved when you use fonts and text, because that is just a complex matter. Let me see. Yeah, so that is I think my presentation will take roughly 20 to 30 minutes. We'll see. So this is the overview. Most of the time I will use for setting the stage, meaning explaining, give some background on fonts in general, and most of the time fonts and text in PDF. Then just a few slides on what does it actually mean when Adobe now says that they drop Type 1 font support in their authoring applications. And third, just a quick overview on what could be done in order to prepare oneself for when that is going to happen in beginning of next year. The topic was discussed or is discussed now for quite some time, and I've seen, so in general, you start this topic, Adobe dropping support for Type 1, by looking back, and so I want to do that too. Type 1 fonts are pretty old. They were introduced with PostScript. part of PostScript. So Adobe, when they invented PostScript as a interface between applications and printers, they also needed somehow support for fonts so that you could design something on the computer, and then when you send the text to the printer, that it knows what fonts to use, meaning a font has the glyph shape for each of the characters that you want to print. Then 7 years later, Adobe, Apple and Microsoft realized that they want to have similar things in their environments and their operating systems. So they wanted to include font technology so that you could, with that operating system on a display, use different fonts as well. They went into discussions with Adobe, but at that time, Type 1 fonts weren't free. The specification was not open. So they would have to license Type 1 fonts, and they couldn't get to an agreement. So Apple and Microsoft decided to develop their own font format, which we still all know is TrueType. It was in the beginning mostly used only for rather cheap fonts, so the more professional font designers kept using Adobe technology, which gave TrueType a bad reputation at the beginning, but that is mostly over. And these two font formats, Type 1 formats and Type 1 fonts and TrueType, are still kind of the only ones. So both have completely different ways to specify the outline for a character. So the technologies are completely different, but still until today, these are really when it comes really to internals, the really two different font formats. Everything that we know today beyond that are variants of these two. And one of that is OpenType, which was then introduced by a different alliance here between Adobe and Microsoft. Adobe by then had realized that they wanted to open Type 1 fonts to the public, so it was a publicly available specification. And then it turned out having two different font formats is not always ideal, so they created OpenType, which is a hybrid format, which means inside of something that is an OpenType font, you could use Type 1 font technology or TrueType technology. Yeah, and then now, what is this? For 27 years later, Adobe announced that they deprecate what they had invented before. Looking at our industry at prepress, we can say we are a little bit. Yes.
May I ask why they did so? Just is this a too easy question, or why? Is it just a money question, or
who?
Adobe. Why did they end support? Why?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I can only guess. But I will come to that. I don't have any insights here. I just know what they have announced, and we will have a look onto that later on. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to look at the industry prepress here. It's a kind of a peculiar situation is that we usually always have fonts embedded into a PDF file, but that is not a given. So PDF can refer and can use fonts that are not embedded into the PDF file. But embedding the fonts avoids issues with missing fonts on another system, or maybe there is a font, the same font is there, but in a different version. So there might be problems. And some of the problems can be avoided by just embedding the font files into the PDF. But still, I mean, Andy has said already, these font problems or text problems are really rare, but once in a while you have them. And these are just a few examples that we've encountered. Once in a while you have what you can see here on the left-hand side, a problem with glyph lookup. So where the wrong character glyph is displayed on the screen or even being printed. At the very bottom on the left-hand side, we have the not def glyph that is used when no proper glyph could be found in the font. and on the right-hand side, we have issues with glyph positioning. So we have these issues still, although we all know, I mean, text is so essential to PDF. So there's almost no PDF file that doesn't use text. So it's very much essential, but still once in a while you see problems. So let's now have a really more technical view on what's going on inside of a PDF file, or when a PDF file is opened by a viewer application, and what happens under the hood in order to display text. So you have a page description at the top here, a page description, and the page description refers to a font. And the font is embedded, maybe, it doesn't have to be, but it may be embedded. But in the page description, you would just use an internal font name, which in this case is F25. You would specify the font size, the text size, and TF just says this is referring to a font. And then you have a resources dictionary, and then in there a font dictionary in the PDF file, and then you have a reference to an object in the PDF file, which in this case is 14OR. Yeah, and that tells the viewer here sits the font. And then in that object, you would find, for instance, the name of the font, which is in this example, Korea. The font type needs to be there, which in this example is true type, and the widths need to be there so that each character can properly position after the previous character. All of this information needs to be there. And optionally, as I've said, this is just optionally, there also may be the font stream embedded into the PDF file. And what is important to understand is if the font stream is embedded, it is still a foreigner to the PDF file. Yeah, the PDF file, it is specified in PDF that there needs to be an indication of the font type. But whether or not that font type is, or that font is embedded is up to the creator of the PDF file. And if the creator embeds the font, then it again is up to the creator in which way it is being embedded. And we will see what that actually means. So let's now have a look what different font types are supported in PDF. We had seen TrueType. In fact, there are 5 different font types that you could have in a PDF file, which is type 1, the one we are talking about today, TrueType, and then there is type 3, which is a special thing because while type 1 and TrueType are real fonts, they specify glyph outlines. Type 3 uses PDF code to describe what is being rendered. And that means type 3 can only exist in PDF. They are used for emoji fonts or so, for instance, but they are created when the PDF is created. So are always part of a PDF file. So we will ignore them from now on. I now covered simple fonts, and the special thing here is a simple font can only address 256 glyphs, which is okay for Latin characters, but it's definitely not enough for Asian characters and the like. So in this international global world, simple fonts are very much limited. You would usually need 2 bytes to address all the characters that you want to address, which gives you 65,000 and even more glyphs. And you can have that in PDF, of course, as well. There are type 0 and type 2 fonts, and they again are using font technology inside that we already know. So inside of a type 0 font, you will find type 1 or CFF, which is a variant of type 1 glyph descriptions, and in the type 2 font, it will be TrueType. CFF is also important to understand what that is in this context. CFF stands for compact font format, and it's just a variant of type 1. while type 1 was really closely related to PostScript and used PostScript commands to describe glyph outlines, CFF is just more compact. So it just shorter, uses shorter operands so that the whole font file can be smaller. And again, as I've said, font files may be embedded and it may even be subsetted so that only the glyphs that are used in the PDF are present in the font. So you will rarely find the very same thing inside embedded into the PDF file. It will usually be slightly modified when being embedded. So let's now look at embedded font programs. So embedded font files, PDF specification talks about font programs. And these are the font files that may be embedded. Yeah, so now we are really looking at the font object in the PDF file that is not following the PDF specification, but follows the font specifications. And then there you can have type 1 fonts in PostScript, the classic thing, and that is the thing that is being deprecated by Adobe together with multiple master fonts, which is just a variant of the type 1 PostScript fonts. The difference doesn't play any role inside of a PDF file. It's more in general, you could use a multiple master font in an application to slightly modify the font in order, for instance, to create a bold variant or an italic variant. And then I already explained CFF, yet another variant for type 1. Then you can have a true type font, type 3 font, as I've mentioned. You can also have the more modern font format OpenType, but that you will really rarely see inside of a PDF file. And as I've said, the authoring application, the application that created the PDF file, does not necessarily have to embed the font file as is. Quite the opposite. Usually they will modify it.
Dietrich?
Yes, please.
Just a question. Are all those type of fonts still a code that has to be executed? Or
no,
it's only type 1?
No, it's not really code. It's yeah, I mean, PDF specification writes says font program, but it's not. It's just the font that you also use in Word or whatever. Yeah, it's just
Okay.
a number of glyph descriptions that you would then display on screen or print or whatever.
Dietrich, I think he's asking.
Yes.
Since he thinks a PostScript font is inside the glyphs are defined as PostScript code. So it's actually a PostScript program painting the glyphs. And this is, I think, what the question was.
Yes.
Similar to the PostScript language when we draw a page.
Yeah, it's a subset, so that you can't use a full PostScript program there. So it's just a subset. So in PostScript, you have descriptions. You can specify an outline using curves and the like. And this technology is used inside of a type 1 font. But you can't use arbitrary PostScript code for a glyph in a type 1 font.
Of course. The only thing is that it remained the only piece of software that is being executed inside, outside of the, let's say, outside of the PDF container model. That's what I think it's odd.
Yeah, I mean, it's you just need something. You need something. You need a way to describe a glyph, and then, I mean, if you have PostScript, why not use it? So again, it's a subset. It's not full full PostScript, but the syntax that you already have in PostScript, it was a good idea to also use that for the glyphs.
And I would even say that the syntax that is used is very similar to the PDF syntax, where you have go-tos and move-tos and fills and strokes and lines. So it's very similar to a PDF kind of syntax.
Yeah, true. I mean, PDF is just another successor, if you want, of PostScript. So many things that Adobe invented and learned and found useful for PostScript are now available in PDF, and the other things that they didn't find so useful aren't. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Bruno. Okay. Yeah. So getting back to the point that I wanted to make here, the authoring application may not the font file in its original format. I have an example here. So InDesign, one of the applications in Creative Suite, I have used it once with an old font, which is a PostScript Type 1 font, and with an OpenType font. And both fonts, the old one that is going to be deprecated, that I can't use in InDesign in the next year, at least if not if I would update to the then current version, and the OpenType font both end up as Type 1 CFF fonts here, yeah, as you can see. So, and that means when I just look at the PDF file, I have no way to find out what font format was used in the beginning in order to create that PDF page. And quite differently in Word, I was using similar fonts, and there I can still see the difference. The OpenType font here shows up as a Type 1 CFF font, and the PostScript font is a Type 1 PostScript font. So here I can still see the difference, but the other thing that we can see is OpenType, even though that is the font file that was used outside of PDF and that is available in the operating system, OpenType is not used by either of these two applications for embedding the file. Okay, moving on. Yeah, this is the last slide of this part. It's going to be a complex thing, but this is what's actually happening, yeah, in a PDF file. This is a procedure how text is painted. So you have the page description, you have a character code in the page description. The character code is 1 byte or 2 bytes, depending on whether you have a simple type font, a simple font, or a complex font, 2 byte, a double byte font. Then you have some mapping in order to derive the glyph from the font, and then you have the font where that has the glyph that is then being painted on screen or printed or whatsoever. And then the way to get from the page, the character code, to the glyph is a complex thing. And that is not always done in ways that are compatible with each other. They 99.9% are just fine, but once in a while you have problems there and issues and incompatibilities. And that part of that reason is that it's so complex. Yeah, just a few examples here. In the first example, we have a Type 1 font. You have the character code always, and then the font, the PDF part of the font tells you that this is using MacRoman encoding. The MacRoman encoding table translate the character code in a glyph name and a PostScript glyph name. And since we have a Type 1 font, we can use that PostScript glyph name there in order to get the glyph. So that is fairly easy. In the second example, we have a TrueType font. And then again, in the PDF, this font defines some custom encoding, which translates the character code into a PostScript glyph name. But since we don't have a Type 1 font, but a TrueType font, we need a glyph ID. So we need to translate that PostScript glyph name into something that can be found in the TrueType font, and this TrueType font happens to have a Unicode CMap. That again is something that is special. It's just an example here. Yeah, so you could use different ways, or you might have to use different ways in order to get a glyph ID from a TrueType font. But in this example, we can use the Adobe glyph name list, yet another mapping that we need to have present somewhere in our application. So we translate the PostScript glyph name into a Unicode code point, and then we can use a Unicode code point for the CMap that is then inside of the TrueType font to get the glyph ID. And last example, I make it short, character code. That is the most straightforward thing here. We have a CID font, a double byte font. We just use identity H, which means the character code on the page basically is the ID in the CID font. So we just we just say it just says identity H. We don't need to understand anything else. And we have a CID to GID map in the font, and that gives us the glyph ID. Yeah, and the point here really is not so much that you understand what is going on in each case. The point here is that it's quite complex, and when we are when we see font issues, text issues in support, we always have to spend some time in order to fully understand what's going on there, and then to prepare our application to deal with whatever comes up in reality, whether it's according to specification or whether it's not according to specification. And that I can confirm that takes lots of effort to comply here. Yeah, and then that's the reason. So that is maybe the outcome of this complex situation. I just in my personal opinion, or what I believe is the situation is so that Adobe wanted to make it as easy as possible to create PDF files, and therefore they opened PDF for kind of everything that a creator application would want to use in order to specify how glyphs are used in the page description. So therefore, Adobe wasn't very restrictive here from a PDF processor point of view. It would be much better if there would only be one font format and only one way to get from the page description to your glyph. However, that would make it more difficult for PDF creators to create a PDF file. And then in order to make PDF file as ubiquitous as it is today, it was probably a good idea to make it as flexible as possible in this regard. Okay, let's quickly move on.
May I?
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to say, we are on purpose focusing here on PDF, actually on the PDF result. And I will also talk about that later on. But we have to keep in mind that the output that InDesign is creating is not only PDF, they are also creating HTML files.
Yeah,
and
right.
Maybe it's maybe a guess, but
yeah,
I would assume that not all HTML renderer can properly render PostScript files, whereas they can render possibly
exactly
OpenType or CFF. OpenType, TrueType.
OpenType fonts, yeah. Exactly, Peter, you're very right, and I will be getting to that. So you're giving me the right words here. No, you're very good, actually. Okay, let's just have a short look. Okay, next topic is, so now we have the announcement from Adobe. What does it actually mean? Adobe said they will disable support for authoring with Type 1 fonts by January 2023. One of the reasons that they say is rightfully that Type 1 is limited to just 256 glyphs, which is in our world today really an important limitation. And then there are font files around that support larger glyph sets. They themselves, as a font creator, concentrate on OpenType for quite some time now, and that is the point that Peter was just making. Most browsers and mobile OSs don't support Type 1 fonts, and similarly, Adobe has decided to also deprecate support for that. And yeah, then what does that mean? What does that not mean? To be clear, Type 1 fonts are an integral part of PDF. So they are specified in the PDF specification. Support for these font files, font formats is specified. That is out of control of Adobe. By decision of Adobe, Adobe has given the PDF specification to ISO. So that means every PDF processor, which is different from a PDF creator, every PDF processor need to support Type 1 fonts. That means for when we're looking at Adobe products, the Adobe APPE will continue the output RIP that can process PDF files will support Type 1 fonts in the future. And if Creative Suite is used as a PDF processor, which is the case if you place a PDF file on your InDesign page, that PDF file will also continue to work even if it uses Type 1 fonts internally. For PDF creation, there is a difference. Updating Creative Suite and after January 2023 might bring issues if you have Type 1 fonts previously used in your InDesign file. And the next point is what Peter just said. So the Creative Suite here just follows other environments. You can't use in an HTML and CSS, you can't use PostScript fonts. You can only use TrueType fonts there. Yeah, and then if you would use InDesign to not just create print files, print PDFs, but maybe also HTML or so, then you would have problems anyway. Yeah, so that might be one of the reasons why Adobe has decided that way. Yeah, and for us, Color software, I can say it maybe is really not a bad idea to somewhat streamline font support. Nobody, these are not us, is in favor of dropping support for Type 1 in PDF. So that is not discussed anywhere on Earth, but still to somewhat streamline what fonts are really used in PDF is actually not a bad idea, I believe. Okay, conclusion, what kind of preparation is needed or possible? I was being told TrueType InDesign for quite some time already brings up a message, a warning. If you open an InDesign file where Type 1 fonts are used, so that is helpful, I believe, in order to prepare. So what you can do is you just open the InDesign file and read the warning. Or you could also use the built-in pre-flight tool in InDesign that can also check for Type 1 fonts. You could as well, of course, use PDF technology. Checking the font type is simple, so I don't think that there is any pre-flight solution on Earth that can't check for that. But we need to understand, and that was one of the goals of my presentation, we need to understand that you may see false positives here. Yeah, so you just don't know what format conversions, font format conversions haven't taken place when the PDF file was created. So you may, it's not possible to differentiate whether it was really a Type 1 PostScript font or whether it was an OpenType Type 1 font, which then wouldn't be an issue. So this is just, it's not exact if you would use PDF pre-flight. Then you can do that interactive, but you could, of course, also use automation tools like Axios Made to Print or our technology, pre-flight technology or others. Yeah, and then that is my last slide, and that the last bullet on that slide answers the question that Andreas Andy has asked in the beginning. So what can you do to resolve issues? Yeah, if you have a type 1 font and you need to replace this, then you have to license and install an open type font. And that only is possible if you're an owner of that font, so not just of a license for the font, but if you're an owner, then you can also use a tool that would allow you to convert the font file. And then there is, for instance, FontLabs TransType that allows you to convert a type 1 font into a TrueType font, for instance. But again, that requires that you have the license to do so.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, that's it. If you want to hear more about that, I'm about to write a blog for that, so you may want to look into that as well at blog@colorsoftware.com. And that was that.
Yeah. And just information, Dietrich has to leave us in about 20 minutes, so don't expect him for a Q&A at the end. So don't hesitate to throw all the questions to him in the next 20 minutes, just for your information. Perfect. Dietrich, Peter, I made you now the moderator. Your camera is paused, so it's okay. Just to let you know that we don't see you.
You should see.
Just stop the camera and reactivate.
Yeah. Show my screen. Oh, it shows the wrong screen now.
Now we see the presentation slide.
Yeah,
slide.
I have to do it a different way. I have two monitors here, but the other one is a very wide monitor, which I do not want to share. Otherwise, some participants might not be able to read a thing. So I'm using the editor mode. Sorry for that.
Okay.
But anyhow, as I mentioned before, we were looking into this issue very focused from the PDF part, and that is where I want to say some words about it, because there was some rumor about that. So what does the drop support of type 1 font for creation applications really means? And you have already heard it now multiple times. Adobe only dropped the support for the creation applications, but not for any product that processes PDF files. So I just can repeat what Dietrich already said before, directly or in between the lines. When we focus on when we look at it from the PDF view, the question is there any consequence for a tool like a PDF reader, meaning a product that views a PDF file, like Adobe Acrobat, a PDF workflow that processes PDF files, also PDF, any application that allows to place a PDF and output a new PDF from it again, and also for output. I'm having an echo somewhere from, I think it's from Andy. Thank you. So the question is will there be any consequence for those tools?
Now we don't hear you anymore. Peter, we don't hear you. Dietrich, do you hear him?
No.
No. Just a second.
Okay,
so I'm back. My headset suddenly disconnected. I need a reset. Okay. When we look at PDF, most of actually everyone who works with PDF should know that PDF became an ISO standard some time ago. We are now at the version 2 of the ISO standard, which defines the standard for PDF 2.0. And there is one sentence in this PDF standard, which I have quoted here, which you, as with a lot of sentences in standards, you have to interpret it. But what it says under the line is, if a tool that renders the content of a PDF file and it renders fonts, it has to support all the fonts. Sorry, in a PDF. Sorry. It has to fully support the concept of fonts in a PDF, and it cannot only render, for example, true type font from a PDF and completely neglect type 1 font. So also from the point of view of the Ghent work group of PDFX Ready, an industry association that creates standards for the printing industry standards, we see no consequence whatsoever for the people that process PDF files. The consequence is obviously for all the industry partners that create the PDF files, that work with the creation applications where the font is used in its native format. And as Dietrich also showed, and I think Dirk will also talk about it, even if you used today an open type OTF font in InDesign, when you check on the PDF afterwards, in the PDF, there is a type 1 font. So even Adobe said it drops the support for type 1 fonts. It only means it drops the support to work with locally installed type 1 fonts. It still creates PDF files with type 1 fonts inside. And last week, there was also a blog from Martin Bailey. He's the CTO of Global Graphics, where he also confirmed
You need to check your Wi-Fi cable.
Yeah, I know. I had to restart my headset again. So.
In 2.5 months, we have Christmas.
Yeah. So I'm back again. So and also he confirmed that there will not be a drop of type 1 fonts in PDF, as we already mentioned before. Someone who is working complies to the rules of PDF has to support type 1 fonts. No need to repeat what was already repeated before more and more, but just rest assured, the ones of us that get PDF files and output them, there is no consequence for that whatsoever.
Thank you very much, Peter. We hope that the tools will claim or will well behave and read and interpret all shells in our ISO standards. Yeah, perfect. Let's move on to Dirk, who would like to share some experiences on how to tackle that topic and to present his view and practical solutions to identify the problems upfront and maybe to overcome them right away. Dirk, please.
Okay, hello all together. I have no presentation like Dietrich or Peter. I want to talk about the practical script we developed for InDesign. The point was that we want to create a service that InDesign customers can search for PostScript Type 1 fonts in their documents automatically. And in the second step, they can replace the PostScript Type 1 fonts with TrueType or other kind of fonts they need. This is what I want to show.
I show it as a service. I use a switch flow in the background. The customer see only 4 folders. SF Eingang means search fonts, and I put, for example, one InDesign document here in the input folder, and in the background there works our script. The script works with InDesign or InDesign Server, and we are just looking for PostScript Type 1 fonts in this document. After this, we have an output folder where we get a folder, and the name from the folder is the same like the InDesign document. In this folder, we have an HTML report. I can just open it. It's very simple. We get the message that we find 3 Type 1 fonts on the page 1, 3, 2, and 4. We can see what kind of font family we have. We can also see the style. What we also get is a JSON file and an Excel file. I just have opened the JSON file here. It's really simple. We have here the fonts where we find, and here 2 or the from 2, and here we fill up the name, the family name and the style from the fonts we want to replace. This is only an example, and it's much easier for the customer. Maybe he just opened the Excel file, and he can also write in the Excel file, and then he saves the Excel file and puts the InDesign files. I just change here, and now I put the InDesign file again in the replace input folder, and we use this CSV or JSON file as a mapping table, and then we change the Type 1 fonts with the other fonts. We also get in the output folder an HTML report. Just wait a little bit. When we wait, we need more time, I think. Okay. We also get an HTML report. We see what we do, or what the script do for us. We see from row to sans serif, we go to Arial italic. But the most important for us is that we get a message about the overflow text on page 4. Overflow text means, I think every InDesign user know what it means. I go to page 4, and we see this plus sign here, and when I just look, I see the space from the text area, from the text box, is not far enough. So we must do something with the typo. One thing for sure, you must check every page in InDesign after you replace the fonts. This is what you must do. I don't know the tool or an application that can do this for us. But I think the script can be helped to search the InDesign documents for the Type 1 fonts, and also replace when we have the license for the other fonts. That's all I want to show. But I will also one thing say, when I start to think about this end of support from Type 1 fonts, I try to check if I can check PDF files. Yes, you can check PDF files, you find Type 1, but we learn from the presentation from Dietrich that when we use OpenType fonts in the InDesign document, we get, in one case, we get TrueType embedded a subset in a PDF file, or we get Type 1 fonts in the PDF file. So it's very difficult to find out. I don't see a chance. I only see a small possibility to write an action list or write a profile. Then I know that Adobe use three kind of characters: Pro and STD. Pro means we use CFF, compact file format, so the open type fonts we use in InDesign will be in S type 1 fonts in the PDF. And I make small testing with an action list and a profile with a PDF toolbox to separate it, to say, okay, show me all type 1 fonts, but don't show me the type 1 fonts they have PRO in the font name, but it's nothing. It's not 100%. Yes, it's only an idea. So I think we have no chance to check a PDF file what kind of fonts we use in the Turing application. So the only way I think is to search in the original document, InDesign, Illustrator. We don't talk about Photoshop because Photoshop is for me an image application. I don't think we have so many kinds of contents in this document. So Illustrator is very interesting for us also because in packaging we use Illustrator, and we
in Photoshop, Dirk, Mario said that you cannot use type 1 in Photoshop already, so it's not allowed anymore.
No. In InDesign or what? I don't understand
Photoshop.
No, in Photoshop it's not allowed in this year. It's true. But Illustrator and InDesign next year from January. And Illustrator is also interesting. And in the moment, with our partner together, Peter knows that we try to find out a script also for Illustrator to search type 1 fonts in an Illustrator document. And we start next week with this to test it if it's possible, because the script engine of Illustrator is a little bit different to InDesign. But I hope we will find a way also in this case. Okay, that's all I want to show.
Thank you very much. I think this is a good insight and background in the whole topic. And as you know, in that case, we will make that recording available for anyone as a public shared link. The normal cafes will only be available for Fogra members in the member area. So that recording here will be an open recording, which you can share then later on, of course. Are there any comments or contributions there?
See everybody my screen?
Yeah.
No.
You see your screen with the green logo.
Okay. This is not this is only a summary about the open type fonts and how it works. And maybe if you want, Andy, you can put this on a download area for the people they look the cafe today.
We have all the email addresses and can send that PDF to all attendees of today. Yes?
I have this PDF file, or we have this PDF file also in German, so it's no problem. We can send it away for people that are interested about this open type fonts.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. Okay. Are there more questions or observations, comments about that topic? From the start, it looked to me somehow controversial and debated quite heatedly. But now I think it's not such a very hot topic. And if you are prepared, you might be, you might overcome many of the roadblocks which you might see when you're not prepared. Yeah. Okay, we don't extend that any longer if there's no question or observation anymore.
Stefan, Jürgen?
Or Stefan, just unmute. You can unmute yourself, Stefan, please. And
Usually he can.
yes, yeah, you can. Now just a second. Now try it again, because we first have to go to webinar. You know, we have to unmute you manually once, and after that you can do it every time. But that initial activation on a person by person basis must be done here. But that is done now. And now please.
Yeah, I could unmute. Thank you. Just a small tip here. Dirk mentioned there's no tools to check the files after the change. There are tools to check. It's good to know that there is text overflow, but that's only one little part of the problem, because change of the font type can mean that vendor, that means different width tables, and then you get a new text flow, including new hyphenations. And it's not enough only to detect that there is text overflow, because if the creator uses always big text boxes, there will be no overflow, but there will be a reflow of text. And there's a simple thing you can do before you do the changes. You create a PDF file with the type 1 fonts. And after you do the changes, you create another PDF file. And then you compare the two PDFs in Adobe Acrobat or in PDF Toolbox. And then you get immediately to see where there are flow changes. And then you can act on that.
Very good tip. Thank you very much, Stefan. I will write this in this document I show for a few seconds, because it's a very good idea. Thank you very much.
I would even consider to build that in your script, that before you do the thing, you create a PDF, and then afterwards you automatically create a PDF. And if you use PDF Toolbox, then you could even directly do the comparison report out of your script.
But do not tell Adobe that you are using InDesign in Switch.
Hey, Peter, this is a good idea. I think we try this next week. Thank you very much.
I send you the invoice.
Okay, I just
we do that here. I forgot salary. Although Gotteslohn in German.
Very good idea. Okay.
Okay. Any more questions? Gone. Yeah, then I thank you very much, Dietrich, Peter, Dirk. So Peter, we have to negotiate our cafe, so I'm very open with respect. So, but not this year anymore, but next year to come. Thank you very much for being with us. Have a good time. See you next time. Bye bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.